Hard than
Sophia, I don't think you
everyone.
want to talk.
All right.
Actually, I like a
So
taller than
again,
Why can't
small intestine is small.
On 10.
Caleb, enough. In terms of diameter, that it's narrower than the large intestine. It's actually much longer than the small intestine, but they're small and large based on the diameter of it. And so the large intestine is the sort of the last part of the digestive system which food travels through. And so there's actually no chemical digestion taking place by digestive enzymes in the large intestine. The main job for the large intestine is to absorb water, to reabsorb water. That's present in that food as it moves through. And so as food travels through this large intestine, water is reabsorbed. Okay. And then the end product of that is feces, which is the product that will be egested. And we talked about that. And so there is an important balance in terms of water reabsorption in the large intestine. That there are cases in which too much water is reabsorbed from the feces and it moves too slowly, and that's called constipation. Okay? And can be treated by increasing the intake of water, by eating foods that are richer in fiber, which makes up the bulk of feces is fiber, undigestible plant material. Okay, so people can take fiber supplements or eat foods that are high in fiber to help increase the amount of cellulose and fiber in the diet, and then improve the situation of constipation. The opposite is true in diarrhea. There's too little water, but there's too much water remaining in that undigestible food. Feces moves too quickly, and eventually, long term, if a person has an illness, an intestinal illness, and has diarrhea for a long period of time, it can lead to dehydration because, again, the large intestine is not reabsorbing that water. And when a person has an infection, diarrhea is actually an adaptation. It's actually a helpful adaptation in some ways. What do you think the benefit of that is? Sort of like vomiting, same idea. There is a benefit to vomiting. We vomit for a reason. And people get diarrhea when they're sick for a reason. You know what it would be?
To remove like bad stuff from your body.
Yeah, to flush out any bacteria that may be causing an illness. Just like vomiting is to get rid of substances that could be toxic or dangerous, and certain tastes, certain smells induce vomiting because that's a protective mechanism. So if you smell something really bad, okay, then it makes you gag or makes you vomit, makes you sick to your stomach, because that's an adaptation to not getting near those things, because they may contain infections, they may contain bacteria, they may contain pathogens. So that's important. But there are bacteria that live, huge numbers of bacteria that live in our digestive tract, and they're actually very beneficial to our bodies. Okay? They help produce certain vitamins that we don't synthesize on our own. Vitamins like vitamin K, which we need for blood clotting. They help break down certain large molecules that couldn't otherwise be broken down. And we live sort of in symbiosis with these bacteria. They get a place to live, they get nutrients, and they help us in our digestion of foods. Sometimes antibiotics that we take orally to clear up whatever, strep throat or an ear infection or something, well, those are systemic drugs. They're circulating throughout our whole body in our blood. So not only do they kill the bacteria that are causing our ear infection or our strep throat, but they also can kill many of the beneficial bacteria that are in our digestive tract. And so if people are taking antibiotics and towards the end of the prescription maybe, or if you have to go on several antibiotics, it may lead to intestinal problems. Or a person may get diarrhea, they may have stomach pain, because those antibiotics they've been taking have not only killed the bacteria causing the infection, but also those beneficial bacteria. And so that leads to difficulty of digestion, and it sort of throws off the balance of our gut flora, is what that's called, the bacteria that live in us.
I was just thinking about this, I don't know if it's to do with the large intestine, but in the small intestine with the villi, is that how, when you take like an oral pill, is that how it gets absorbed into the lungs?
Yeah, good question. And this also has to do with something else. So yeah, when we take an oral medication, you should swallow a pill. So there's certain drugs can be administered orally, others need to be injected, some need to be absorbed into the skin. Depends on the medication. And if we take a pill, a drug orally, goes into our stomach, our small intestine, as it's broken down, the molecules within that, the medication, goes into our bloodstream. But then what did we say yesterday? Where does most of that blood go next? To our liver. And our liver actually metabolizes certain things out of our blood. Certain medications, the reason you cannot take a pill form of it is because the liver would break it down. So after it gets into your blood, it goes to the liver would break it down. So those sorts of drugs may have to be injected, they may have to be absorbed into the membranes in your mouth. Sometimes they have sublingual, where you put a drop of something, you let something dissolve in your mouth. Some medications are given via suppository, where there's a medication and they put it inside of the rectum, because the blood that comes from the rectum actually bypasses the liver. So if they put medication that can be absorbed into blood vessels in the rectum and then go directly into circulation without stopping at the liver. Some medications are time release. They have a coating on them that makes them slower to break down so that the medication is released more gradually rather than dissolving very quickly. So there's a lot of things related to oral medications that have to be examined to make those drugs remain effective even though they're being digested. So as the food moves along, feces is collected in the rectum, which is the end of the large intestine. You know, the different parts of the large intestine. Your large intestine sort of comes up the right side of your body. It's called the ascending colon. Goes across your midsection. That's the transverse colon. And then comes back down, the descending colon, and then sort of loops around into the rectum. And then the opening is called the anus. And the feces that gets stored there in the rectum is basically what it is a mixture of mostly cellulose, undigested plant material, but also lots of bacteria there as that food moves through the large intestine. It collects lots of bacteria. Cells from the interior of the lining of the intestine are in there, mucus, some bile that's been moved through the system. So it's just a collection of all those things, and periodically gets eliminated out of the body through the opening called the anus. Just one other little factor, the appendix. So the appendix is over here. It's just after the small intestine here turns into the large intestine. Before it starts ascending, there's this little section called the appendix. And it's kind of like, it's very narrow. It's like a little worm there hanging off the end. And the appendix can be inflamed. It can get infected with harmful bacteria and can swell up. And when I was a kid, I think 11 years old, I got appendicitis, and I had to have my appendix removed. Because if the appendix gets infected with bacteria, swells up, if it bursts, it spills all of those harmful pathogenic bacteria into just sort of your general body cavity, and that can lead to an infection that could actually kill you. So you have to have your appendix removed, hopefully, before it actually bursts. And they just do a small incision, cut it out. And it was thought that the appendix doesn't really have a function. That's a vestigial structure left over through evolution. That's what was thought for a long, long time. In fact, even on your quiz tomorrow, one of the questions may refer to this. But actually scientists in the last several years have discovered that there are a beneficial function to our appendix. It actually thought to serve as a little storehouse for bacteria that are helpful to our digestion. All those bacteria I was just talking about, those beneficial, they're called gut flora. Well, if something happens and those bacteria die off, it's thought that the appendix can have a little storehouse. So after that happens, the bacteria can come out of that appendix and repopulate our intestine with these beneficial bacteria. So that is actually a helpful function to this organ.
Well, is that the same function that happened before evolution?
No, people thought that it was the leftovers of animals that need a longer part of their large intestine for digesting different types of food, but it got gradually smaller over time in evolution. All right, so any questions about the large intestine, appendix?
What's colon?
The colon is just another word really for the end of the large intestine. The whole thing could be called the colon. It's just sort of another term for large intestine. Like a person, if they get a colonoscopy, the doctor puts a camera in through the anus into the rectum, and they can snake that camera around. And what they're looking for are oftentimes colon lesions, polyps that can eventually become colon cancer. Colon cancer is a very common form of cancer.
Isn't it common in only men?
No, it's common in both men and women. Probably more common in men, I think.
Oh wait, never mind. That's prostate.
Yeah. And so they can look and see if everything's normal. And after, I think they're recommended after like a person's about age 50 or so to go for every couple of years a colonoscopy. If you ever knew, like maybe your parents had to have one or something, do you know what they have to do before they go in for the procedure, what they do the day before?
They don't eat.
Yes, but then they also, because they don't want any food in the,
Laxative.
they take medication, they have to drink this stuff, and what that does is it forces them to, after a little while, they'll be in the bathroom for most of the rest of the afternoon, because basically this medication helps them, makes them eliminate all undigested material from the large intestine.
Yeah.
So that when the doctor, obviously, when a doctor is going to be putting an endoscope into the rectum, they don't want it to be clogged with feces. They need to have a way to see things in there.
Oh yeah, why is it bad to eat?
E. coli, there's lots of different types of E. coli. And so some can be pathogenic and harmful and cause food poisoning, others are beneficial. So it's sort of like a broad type of species of bacteria. There's many subspecies.
Wait, where is prostate?
In the prostate gland, part of the reproductive tract that produces semen.
Oh, okay.
Where is it? It's in the same,
Yeah.
is that why you're asking?
No, because I said colon cancer and I thought that was one that was popular among men, but then I realized it wasn't.
Well, because it's also located just behind the rectum, so when a man gets a prostate exam, the doctor
that's what
puts their fingers inside of the rectum, and through the wall of the rectum, they can actually feel the prostate gland, and if it's enlarged, the doctor can feel that, and that's one of the warning signs of prostate cancer, is an enlarged prostate gland.
That's why.
Yeah. All right, a couple videos here. Oh, hold on. Yeah, Nate?
Do we have to know any of the good or bad bacteria besides E. coli?
Not really. There's because of that last slide.
Yeah.
No, I'll talk to you. Oh, wait. Well, I guess let me talk to it now. So, there's lots of bacteria that are beneficial and that are harmful. And so here are some examples of some beneficial bacteria. You see some of these you'll find too. Oh, in yogurt. When you read a package of yogurt like this one, it says on it, it has, which one's this? Contains, acidophilus and bifidus. So it includes some of these bacteria that are helpful for digestion. But there's also negative bacteria that cause intestinal problems. This is a really difficult one. This is Clostridium difficile, and this is one that could cause serious illness.
Difficult.
Yeah. In fact, I have an article I wanted you guys to read, but we might not get to it. But person that's infected with Clostridium difficile, they can have serious long-term digestive infections. One of the treatments for that is a fecal transplant. Because one of the reasons a person could get infected with some of these negative bacteria is the beneficial bacteria have been outnumbered or been outcompeted by some of these negative bacteria in the digestive tract, and the harmful bacteria have been able, their population to rise, causing difficulties. So one means of treating that, and one that recently has got a lot of publicity is a fecal transplant, where, there's different ways they can do this, but they can take feces from another person and implant it into the rectum of a person that has this disease, and the beneficial bacteria from the other person's healthy feces can then help to repopulate the person who's sick, their large intestine, with these beneficial bacteria, and it can often help to treat one of these infections.
But wouldn't it just come out?
It would eventually, but in the time that it's in the colon, it can help repopulate those bacteria.
Okay. This is really not good.
That doesn't
to have
make
before
sense.
lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually also
No, stop, no.
an oral pill that you can take,
Ew. Please don't
but it
do
contains basically just samples of bacteria.
Okay.
So it's pretty much like being boozled.
Like you have to take a poop pill, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Alright.
Awesome. Talking about this before lunch.
I'll find the